Welcome back to the Law of Relevancy podcast. Today I'm joined by one of the hottest young entrepreneurs. I don't mean in the sexy way. And like
maybe that too.
maybe that too. One of the hottest, fastest growing, brightest young entrepreneurs in all of Tampa Bay, Chon Nguyen. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
So you've got this interesting mix. You've got like this incredible aptitude and skill set around technology, but your passion seems to be in food. You've got all these restaurants.
That too, yeah. They just sort of came together that way. Yeah, my background is in technology. That's where I started, and then I started doing food technology, and then food itself. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Well, I can totally see how the technology, and you created an app for restaurants. Is that where your passion for restaurants came from? That you got into the restaurants and learned the biz, and then?
Yeah, so my managed IT company, we were doing outsourced IT for restaurants, and so I found so all the infrastructure around it, so low voltage cabling, point of sale, cameras, which we still do today. But I found myself in the kitchen, and one of the chefs, they had 6 restaurants, and he was saying that they had a hard time keeping things consistent across all the restaurants, and they were shipping binders from their corporate headquarters to all the restaurants, and he would go do a visit, and they wouldn't be able.
Which restaurant was this?
At the time, it was
Hungry Greek.
Leroy Selman's, which is no longer around. But that was the first. That was kind of where we originally put it. They're in Carmel Cafe were the first ones, and so we were just going back and forth with some of their teams there, and there at the time there were computers in the kitchen, so you would go in there and they would have the mouse and keyboard, and the chef would wipe off their hands on the towel and sort of be like hunting for the recipes. But the iPad just came out, and so we're like, what if we put this on the iPad? And we built out a very simple content management system to manage recipes, and they sort of nodded their head, and they were like, yeah, this is what we want. And I said, would you pay for it? They said yes, and then it became a business, and now we're in probably north of 1,700 restaurants around the country.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a real success story.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about this actual interface and an iPad in the restaurant, you said we built out. So was that built within like programmers that worked at Newgentek?
No. So I had them. Right now I have 3 businesses: Newgentek, which is technology solutions. We do outsourced IT. We do a lot of multi-site work, so field services and infrastructure deployments.
What does that mean in English?
That means for companies that are growing quickly around the country, we procure and build their infrastructure mostly off-site. So we'll build like the rack that houses all their technology. Gotcha. We put it on a pallet, we ship it to the site, and then we dispatch installers that will connect all the equipment and support kind of the opening. But yeah, we work with a lot of multi-unit restaurants. We work with like people that are doing like medical clinics, anything that has like sort of a wash, rinse, and repeat technology deployment. We handle that, and then a lot of times we'll flip that over to our help desk and then provide ongoing service and support and maintenance around those sites as well.
Well, 2 of the things you've already mentioned have a lot to do with scale.
Yeah.
Had you read the E-Myth before?
That's my Bible. Yeah. That's what sort of took me from the one-man shop to being able to scale and just helped me think about things. Obviously, that's like the first step of the building blocks, I feel like, and then you grow from there. But yeah, I would recommend that to everyone.
How old were you when you read that book?
Oh, probably 22, 23.
How did it get in your hands? Was it just like the next recommended book at Amazon?
I'm not sure who recommended it to me. I can't remember now, but I have since gifted it to a lot of entrepreneurs because I just think it does a good job of sort of explaining that whole thing about building processes and repeatable and working on the business instead of in the business and thinking about scale before you get there. And there's just a lot of great lessons in there.
Well, there's a good story about a bakery in that book.
Is that your Bible also?
Well, in the book, they talk about baking more pies.
Oh, okay.
And so,
That's where it came from.
and well, it's part. Yeah, it's actually, it's a lot of people ask me where the name came from, and it has to do with scale and growth and not thinking about things as a zero sum game. But I think actually my business partner had heard baking more pies and thought about it in like a business development and idea kind of, and he sort of adopted it and changed, appropriated the definition for thinking about ways to scale. But and that's how we got it. It was just a conversation through my business partner. But I always laugh because literally like there's examples of baking more pies in the book, and so I just think it's fun because that's where we're at. We're baking more pies.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's Newgentek, and then you asked about so FusionPrep was another company that came out of that. I have a partner in that business, Sean Berg. He lives here locally as well, and yeah, we just saw the opportunity and sort of built it out. And then how I got involved in the restaurants was I was eating, and the chef there, who's now my friend and business partner, Farrell Alvarez, and Ty Rodriguez, they're my partners in the restaurant group, Proper House Restaurant Group. They we gave them the software to use. They were a really small restaurant, and then we just became friends, and I've been able to be a part of that group moving forward. So.
That's really cool. How important is it to prototype things in that way? Because you took all that risk, right?
Yeah, I think I was I was giving my partner a hard time because we when I saw the idea, I went to him and I said to him, I'm like you have to trust me on this, like iPads in the kitchen is going to be the future, and he was like, there's no way it's ever going to be a thing. And I'm like, no, they're literally telling us that this would solve a problem. Let's build it out and see. And yeah, it ended up changing both of our lives and probably paying for our kids to go to college. But he was reluctant at first because even though it was just a time commitment, we were really busy at the time. I think I had just found out that we were pregnant with my oldest son now, who's 10, and so it was a lot of nights and weekends of just, is it going to work, is it not? But it was only time, and we were either going to learn a lot and it not be successful, or learn a lot and it end up being a success. So.
Well, a couple of the restaurants that you mentioned where you got to sort of cut your teeth with the app, the pedigree of the owners of those restaurants is some of the biggest restaurateurs in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that was pretty fortunate.
It was, yeah. And the teams they surround themselves, they gave great feedback and had seen a lot of operational, obviously had been through some growth and some operational challenges. And so they were really instrumental in helping develop the tool and they were gracious enough to give us feedback as we built it. So.
Well, you mentioned that this app, I mean, it does one thing. It did like one thing at the time.
At the time, yeah.
It forced restaurants to be consistent with their recipes, right?
Yeah, it was a training tool. So, I mean, the idea was just, it allowed them to ensure consistency, that everything was always up to date. And so, and be a little more agile when they're changing their menus too. So when they're talking about like a menu rollout or specials, being able to
more laminating.
Yeah, right. And being able to control it centrally and control the timing of how that gets out there, I think was a really valuable tool for them. And so the way we calculated the ROI was just on the binders itself. And then we sort of evolved the products, past that. And so now we call it a digital kitchen solution now, but it does recipes, build cards, all the compliance that would be required in a kitchen. So line checks, checklists, prep sheets. It does all their food safety labeling.
It's like a back of the house management tool.
Exactly. Yeah.
For the staff.
Yeah. It doesn't do costing, which we get asked about a lot, but it's really an operational production tool, and that's used by thousands of people every day.
And if you can control those processes and those costs, you can be a lot more profitable as a restaurant.
Definitely. And now with the labor shortage, turnover is becoming a lot more of a thing. So to the extent that you can put a tool in front of somebody and get them up to speed, our tool really helps with that too.
So this tool, FusionPrep, it solved a problem. Have there been any other ventures you've been a part of that you felt as sure because it also solved a problem?
Yeah, I think that's sort of where I start with everything that we do. Even if we get into like a new business at Newgentek or take on a new product, to market, right? I think that's always the lens I try to look at it through. And I think part of why I love doing what I do, especially around the technology, is that I get to interact with a lot of different types of businesses, probably much like you, right? It's not like, we're not stuck in sort of one lane.
Yeah, that's like 50% of my paycheck. It's just the knowledge of getting to learn other business models and things like that.
I didn't go to college. And so like, I feel like I get to go to school every day because, to learn from other entrepreneurs and be exposed to the different types of businesses, helps out. And, Fusion Prep is a good example of that because it really came together at the intersection of technology and culinary. I knew nothing about, I'd never worked in a kitchen. I'd never been in a kitchen except to pull cable at that time. Right. So for the network and so, luckily I think the chef was kind enough to sort of walk me through some of the problems, but that's how we got to building out that initial, that first MVP product and was just kind of going back and forth and saying like, does this help? Yes. Okay. Like then let's do it. Right. So, yeah.
Well, that's really cool. Just from looking at some of the logos on your website, I mean, you're working with some very marquee groups.
Yeah.
I mean, you're making sure that thing is cooked the same way at all the different locations. You're probably responsible for rolling out the daily special as well.
We are, yeah. A lot of national, restaurants. It's always cool to when I'm in another city and I like peek back in the kitchen and I see one of our labels.
That's so
really
cool.
Yeah,
that's such a good feeling.
Yeah,
I love like riding down the road and seeing like some logo we did or something.
Yeah,
and be like, man, they're doing so great.
That's
and
right,
like
yeah.
we had a little piece of that.
Yeah.
That's so much fun. I think one of the most challenging industries to be in is the car business.
Yeah,
there is
although now you're selling a lot, but
the industry itself, right?
Yeah.
And so, and you know where I'm going with this. One of the things that's really challenging about it is you've got a fast-paced environment. You have a very defined cycle of business. It's highly competitive. There's a lot of money at stake. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of reward, and that's the business that you grew up learning in, right? Like you watching your dad.
Yeah. Yep. Certainly got my work ethic from him. If you are a child of a parent in the car business, I am pretty far removed from that world now, except when I buy a vehicle. But I, growing up, my dad was, working weekends and late at night. He'd go home when the deal was done, and so I think that gave. But I also saw that he was very passionate about his work too. So it was not a lot of quantity, but the quality was good. And for me, seeing him excited about his work and going in to work every day excited, I think probably had a big effect on me.
What was his role?
He was a general manager, and then he owned some dealerships, and yeah, so up and down the stack.
Yeah, I mean, so that's doing the car business at a really high level.
Yeah,
there's a lot of moving parts in a dealership. How important is it to have that grit when it comes to being an entrepreneur?
I think it is very important. There's a book called The Dip by Seth Godin, but it talks about like overcoming that. Like a lot of times when you feel like you're at the end, right, or like there's no way to do things, like that's really the time you need to apply the pressure and double down, because once you overcome that, that's when you start to see the fruits of your labor. But
so specifically, what do you mean?
Well, looking back, like a lot of times, if I in anything that I've done, really, like Fusion Prep, some of the restaurants, that we own, you always hit a hard time. Like that's just the business that we're in, right? And so, being able to recognize that, nothing is permanent or forever, and having that resilience and grit to be able to know that you can and will figure it out. I think a lot of times that might be when people throw in the towel. And then taking a long like if you back out of my if you sort of zoom out of my entire trajectory, it didn't really. People always think it's an overnight success, but I didn't really start having success until a lot of success until maybe within the last 10 years. I'd say it was in a real upward trajectory, right? And then Fusion Prep is 10 years old, but that didn't start to hit the curve until probably 5 or 6 years into it. But then it starts to compound, right? And so having that patience and grit and resilience and knowing that you're gonna see the other side of it is
maybe around
really
like year
important.
3 or 3.5, you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah,
Like,
I
this
mean,
is
when
always-
you probably talk to other entrepreneurs all the time, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna try this," and my advice, I want to tell them, like buckle up, like it's because it's probably the hardest thing you're ever gonna do, and it just takes time. Like I mean, you have to. It's just it takes time. Like and I think a lot of people probably underestimate that, how hard it's going to be and how much time it's going to take, and they see entrepreneurship is like sexy right now. Like I think a lot of a lot of people want to start their own thing, and more power to them. I love it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But I certainly, it has been harder than I ever thought it would be. Like,
but it's also incredibly rewarding when you hit your stride.
definitely. Yep. Yeah, it takes time.
So let's talk about some of your restaurants.
Yeah.
So what is the portfolio of restaurants that you're working in right now?
Yeah, so
that you own?
we're Proper House Restaurant Group. It's myself, Farrell Alvarez, and Ty Rodriguez. They started Rooster in the Till.
And they're
Almost
chefs.
9 years. Farrell is the chef, and Ty is kind of front of house and ops. And so they started Rooster in the Till in Seminole Heights. I was a customer. We gave them Fusion Prep. We became friends. We did Nebraska Mini Mart together, which was their second one. I was a financial partner in that. And then they had some original partners in Rooster in the Till that there was an opportunity for them to exit. And so I bought them out. And then since then, we have opened Gaito at Sparkman Wharf. We have a second Gaito at the Joinery in Lakeland, which is a food hall, similar to Armature Works. We have Dang Dude at Sparkman Wharf, which is our Asian concept, fast casual.
That's a pretty
Asian.
cool name.
Yeah. And then we have a bunch of other projects in the pipeline.
How do you guys pick your concepts?
We look at a number of different things. I mean, we do a ton of R&D. We happen to like to eat out a lot, and so we do that in our spare time, and we're just following the industry really closely. And then just based on the mix, at Sparkman, there are a bunch of other tenants there, so we have to be able to do something that fits in well there, and so, but we're always sort of thinking about different things we could do. So we have like a handful of ones that we're just waiting to find the real estate for, basically.
They're on like a 3x5 card somewhere.
Yeah. And we think about names and our branding all the time. It's just a hobby for us too, so we love it. So
I think you have to love it. I was talking to somebody not long ago, and they're famously successful in technology, and they have this passion for restaurants. They love investing in restaurants.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're never going to make a ton of money in it unless you scale. Like you come up with like a chain or something that can really explode. Like you could make a lot of money because every day we've got to eat.
That's right.
Everybody,
most people eat 3 times a day. So yeah, there are a lot of occasions, but there's certainly a lot of competition. And Tampa is you mentioned some of the operators that started the restaurants that we got started Fusion Prep in, and Outback Steakhouse, Darden, right? I mean, this is the chain restaurant capital of the country.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, Red Lobster was formed here like decades ago.
That's right. Yep. Yeah.
And then we've had, you just mentioned like Darden Group, Bloomin' Brands, all those people. What was that like? How old were you when you went in to go sell Fusion Prep to those guys?
I was probably 20. I mean, it's 10 years ago now. So in my mid 20s.
Okay,
Yeah, it was. I mean, they were seasoned operators, and the restaurants they were building were incredible, and being able to
I mean, that was the major leagues,
work with
dude.
their
Like,
team. Yeah,
so here you are, you're like 26, 27 years old. You're walking in there and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go meet with Chris Sullivan and Bob Basham about Fusion Prep.
yeah. And we were doing some of their IT in the restaurants as well, so I had a relationship with them there. But I mean, they're incredibly kind and have um, have been doing it for a very long time, and very friendly to entrepreneurship. Chris has done some deals in technology, here around town, and so um, it was they were just really receptive and were generous with their time and the time of their team, and I couldn't have
Do you
asked for that to go
think
any
there was a
better.
component of it where they wanted to help you be successful?
I'm sure. Yeah, I mean they would have. Yeah, they're doing okay. So I think it must give them some.
I mean, just being
Uh,
like Tampa homegrown, like
yeah,
let's help this local guy out.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, it's like I would want to. Are you mentoring anybody right now? Do you have any people that you mentor?
I mean, people on my team, yeah. So some the people on my leadership team at Newgentek, the managers there. Um, yeah, I think trying to do a lot of board work. So joined the board of the YMCA, which I worked at in high school. Went as a child. That's really important to me. So try to give back there.
James P. Gillis, YMCA.
That's right. Yep. Yeah.
Right
It's
up there.
a camper and an employee, proud employee. Yeah.
That's a nice YMCA
It
over
is.
there.
It's
I've
really nice.
frequented that one myself a long time ago.
Yeah.
Um, so you talked about the E-Myth. You talked about, you've got some concepts out there that have scaled fantastically. Software and apps is a great one to do. You've also got this services business.
Yeah.
What is your plan for that? Because that's an entirely different type of scale.
Yeah, we have 39 people now, and that started in 2017. I had another business with a partner that we ended up having we ended up parting ways, and so I left that business and then started Newgentek. And so Newgentek is new and has been growing quickly.
You won
New
Small Business
relative.
of the Year.
We
like,
did,
as a
yeah,
startup, right?
in 2019. Yep. So that was a great thing for the team, and it's a hard business, right? I mean, there's more people. We're shipping things all across the country. We have a large logistics and warehousing piece to it. The help desk is you're having to staff that 7 days a week and serve national clients across time zones, and so just the complexity around that business is different from software, is different from restaurants, but it gives you it goes back to what we were talking about before about having that purview across different businesses sort of helps everything, right? And so a lot of the same, we're having hiring challenges across all the businesses, and so I can take a little from here, a little from here, and kind of hone those processes that way. But yeah, the technology businesses, especially the way we execute it, is just very complex.
One of the things I like about the business that I'm in is I get to see all these different business models, and every now and then I'll come across an opportunity. It's kind of like what you've talked
Yeah.
about. So I kind of think about it, and it's kind of fun. It's like a little Shark Tank. It's like, hey, if I've got this client and they need help, and I can really, really help them, and I can see where it's going, maybe I'll invest my own money, right?
Yeah.
Is that part of the reason that you keep the technology company going, because you're getting all these opportunities in front of these diverse businesses?
That happens. Yeah. One of my early customers, I had some equity in that, and they ended up selling, and that was and we were doing all their IT, and just happened to have an opportunity to participate. I think it goes back to what I was saying before too, about just being able to see all the, we have a manufacturing client, we have a national hair care product that is in retail, and so getting to watch that grow. Just professional services, and so just being able to see and be close to all those different businesses is just satisfies my curiosity, and kind of keeps me excited and interested. But yeah, there have been opportunities, and I think, especially now at this point in my career, like you do come across deals and opportunities where you're able to sort of look, and or you'll see somebody doing something interesting where they're working at, and being able to have that conversation and say, like, this is something that could be something greater. Obviously, if not if it involves IP or anything like that, but like like there is something here, and sort of encouraging them and letting them,
That's fun.
yeah, painting that picture for them,
Absolutely. I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. Just a little puff of wind in their sail.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? Like you're doing something
Yeah.
really neat. That's going to work.
Yeah, you can do it, man. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So at this point in your career, we're about the same age. I think I'm a little bit older than you are. And you're now starting to find yourself sitting on these boards. So how do you do that? Like, how do you get connected? Because you're on some pretty important ones. Like there's the EDC of Tampa Bay. I mean, that's a pretty active group there.
It is, yeah. Yeah, so we're an investor in the EDC. That's how I originally got involved there, and
That means a sponsor.
That's right. So you were paying to be a part of the group. You don't get on the board by just doing that, but the mission was attractive to me about that organization, and that's fostering growth around the region. They're a great, capable team that have brought us a lot of great businesses to the area.
They're specifically like recruiters for our region.
That's right. So they're talking to companies that may be out of market, and trying to attract them here. They're promoting growth of the current companies that are in market. But yeah, when being an investor and participating in some of the annual meetings, then I was given the opportunity to be on the board, and it's a great room to be in, because you get to see some of the stuff that's coming down the pipe, and some of the companies that they're working with, and other extremely successful people are part of that board, and so to be in that room has been really, really helpful. And then the YMCA, I told you I used to work there. I was a camper there. It was really important to me in my life growing up, and so I'm on the board of the downtown Central City and Sulphur Springs YMCA, and to be able to give back there and spend time with them on some of their programs has been really rewarding for me too.
So if I want to get on a board, you recommend paying, becoming some level of sponsorship within the organization. So whether it's the chamber, EDC, if it's a nonprofit, you might want to consider donating. You probably should.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of boards, they require it.
That's right. Yeah. Yep. So most boards are require that you give, and they want their board to be to have some sort of financial impact. So yeah, that's important.
I know a lot of them, they'll say, okay, we want our board seats to be responsible for raising 10 grand.
That's right.
And so you might invite 10 guests to be at your table,
yep,
or 9 guests to be at your table, and everybody puts in $1 grand.
Yeah.
Or it could be your money.
Yep. So I mean, I give on the boards that I sit on, I give personally, and then we've done like a charity dinner at the Rooster and the Till for the YMCA to launch a new tasting menu. We've given our golf tournament at Newgentek. We've supported the YMCA through that, and so there are other ways that you can kind of support the organizations that are important. And then my wife and I also contribute to those organizations that I sit on as well personally.
I think it's cool that you're picking organizations that you're passionate about. I mean,
yeah,
it seems very natural.
Yep.
To want to do that. So you've done that, and then how do you let it be known? Like, hey, I'm interested. If there's a position open on the board, like how do you broach that subject? Do you help initiate that somehow, or are you just passively waiting to be asked? Like, how does that go?
It's networking. I mean, so education is a cause. It's public education is very important to me, and so Kim, who runs the Hillsborough Education Foundation, is in CEO Council with me, which is a peer group, which I hope we touch on peer groups. But so I became acquainted with her, and I told her that it was important to me, and so I'm going through I've expressed interest in being on that board, and that's how that works. So hopefully that comes to fruition. The YMCA, I just sort of networked with some folks that I knew were on the board that
Yeah.
were in other groups with me, and then same thing with the EDC. So I think if you find an organization that is important to you, just figuring out who's connected and how you can get involved.
It can be really rewarding to give back
Definitely.
to organizations, 100%.
Yeah.
So you mentioned CEO Council. We can talk about it now. So
Yeah.
I joined about a year ago. I was like, I felt like, oh, made it.
Yeah.
I finally made it, because they've got some pretty, for an entrepreneur, there's a huge percentage of businesses that'll never get to the level
That's right.
that you have to be at to get into that
Yep.
that organization.
Yeah, which I think is good. I mean, I ideally we and they've talked about trying to figure out some way to have like a feeder program or development, because I think it's you do set the bar high, but how are you going to continue to keep that pipeline strong? But yeah, they do have strong revenue headcount requirements.
But it's a great organization. I mean, one of the things I love about it is the roundtable that I'm a part of.
Yeah.
And so the roundtable is this group. It's about a dozen people, maybe a little bit more. And, once a month we'll get together. We'll spend a couple hours together talking through challenges we all have, whether, as business owners. And it doesn't matter what business you're in, you're all going to have similar issues.
Definitely.
Whether it's you're acquiring something, you're rolling out some new change, or your headcount. It's keeping the workplace is a very rewarding place. Your culture, all kinds of different things. It's great to be able to talk about that with other people who are going through those same things. I know that you've been a member of Vistage as well, which is really completely dedicated to that.
That's right. Yeah. It's a little more intimate, I would say. CEO Council, great speakers, roundtables are great. It's been an excellent group socially. It connects you to other owners and operators. Vistage is the same thing, but a little more intimate, I would say, because it's one day a month, but it's all day, and so and then they also do one-on-one coaching with the facilitator. So it's kind of having like a business psychologist is the best way I can describe it. You sort of spend 90 minutes a month talking through all your problems. But the group meetings there, they fly in a speaker for the smaller group. There's 12 of us, and then that's half of the day, and then the other half is sort of just going through decisions and challenges and opportunities. Every month, somebody in the group is you do a deep dive into their business, so you're looking at full financials and talking through the challenges. So you really get a much deeper level of accountability, I think, and also just an intimate understanding of the other people's business.
So is it the accountability? Is that the part that you love, need the most out of your peers?
Yeah, I think so. It's like a personal trainer. It's like a psychologist. It's it covers a lot of ground. But the roundtables that you described, to me, I wish I would have joined it way earlier in my career, because I feel like as an entrepreneur, when you're building something, it gets really lonely at the top. You're surrounded by a lot
figuring it out.
Yeah, and you're surrounded by employees most of the time who are giving you great feedback if they work for you, but that have a bias towards towards you a little bit, I guess, right? And so having somebody, that third party, like,
they're not always going to tell you the stuff you don't want to hear.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think being able to appreciate that other people are going, it's not misery loves company, but kind of like that. But it's that seeing that other people are going through these challenges, and in my Vistage group there are I think 3 of the people in there, they operate $1 billion plus businesses, and so when they come in and say that they're having a hard time retaining talent, I'm like, oh man, thank goodness, like it's still a problem for you.
They've got 20 people in HR.
That's right. Yeah. So it makes you feel a little better.
Yeah, I think one of the things that appeals to me most about those kinds of groups is just that accountability piece, because I want everybody to succeed, right? And like I may have some team member or something that's not making it or whatnot, and that group's going to ask me, like, what did I do? Did I provide them training? Did I provide them environment, or did I let them go? Right? Because if they just keep sticking around, eventually they might take somebody else with them.
That's right.
If they're sour about the job. So I really, really appreciate, some of the feedback you get from other entrepreneurs and some of those other leaders in that group. What advice would you give someone who was like you? I mean, some bright young 16, teenager who just feels like they've got some answers to some problems or whatnot. Like what advice would you give them if they're about to try to do their own thing?
I think networking and socializing your idea is really important. A lot of times, like people reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll get coffee with them, and one, I really appreciate that. I mean, I would do the same thing when I was younger too.
So people that don't know you will just hit you up on LinkedIn and be like, "Hey, dude, I've seen you around."
Yeah, or like I'll be at an event or I'll speak at we're partners at USF or the Sales and Marketing Institute, so I'll speak there. I'll just be out and about, and then they'll say like, "Hey, I enjoyed. Like, do you have time to get happy hour or go to coffee?" And the answer is usually always yes, because I love to help them and why not, right? And so I think doing that is really important because one, just having the you know doing that, right, is it takes, I think a lot of times people
the person reaching out to you recommend them reach out to other people who have been successful that might be doing something that they like to do. See if you can get a conversation with them is what you're saying.
Yeah, that would be my advice to anyone that's trying to start something new or learn about entrepreneurship, is to reach out to the highest person that you can, or somebody that you admire or has done it before, because they're going to give you a lot of valuable feedback and probably the push that you need that might help you, that might be holding you back, right? And sometimes, though, I'll meet with people and they will be hesitant to share their idea because they're afraid somebody might copy it or steal it, or will you sign this NDA, which I don't, and so I try to explain to them, ideas are great, but it's 98% execution and coming in every day and building the product. And so
you're pretty safe. There's very few people who are going to just rip off an idea because it's not easy.
Yeah. And so and if you're asking somebody to get together,
why not share?
And then not going to share it, right? Yeah. So so that's happened a couple times. I've had that
Start
conversation.
checking your watch.
I've had that conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think socializing, their ideas and what they want to do and getting feedback from people that have done it is probably and it doesn't cost anything, right? So that would be the biggest piece of advice. And I think as you're building, when you start to build, getting involved in and surrounded by either other people that are building or peer groups, right? That is invaluable.
I mean, you do it in your restaurant business. You're picking location. Put yourself in that location of people that are being successful socially.
That's right.
Because it's just, as long as you're a decent human being.
Yeah. Yeah. Rising tide raises all boats. Or something.
Right. I mean, there's a chance that you might end up with a conversation that, you could help someone and they could help you.
For sure.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, your restaurants, you're actually Sparksman's Wharf. It's kind of a hot area. You've got the,
Seminole Heights.
Seminole Heights, right? It's a revitalized area of Tampa with a lot of that kind of hipster food culture, kind of a thing, and so it's a great place to put a restaurant because people want to try, some of these foods they're watching on TV and whatnot, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So that's really good advice. Chon, what is your trajectory? If I said, okay, you can end up anywhere you want to end up. Do you want to be one of these restaurant billionaire guys, a mega philanthropist? Do you want to keep doing what you're doing, have a lifestyle company? What's your goal?
I think Newgentek will continue to grow. I could see us doing some sort of a a roll up strategy there where we do some acquisitions to create some inorganic growth. Once we sort of have the platform dialed in a little more, so that's probably past 24 months. And then that would set in motion probably another phase of the business. I think, for me personally, I'm hoping that, if I'm working through my 40s and sort of continuing to build the things that I'm involved with now, I would hope my second act would just be helping other people. So maybe doing a little fund or just doing some angel investing and helping other people build their business and hopefully taking a step back. My wife would probably hope so too, but and relaxing a little more, but that's not really in my nature. So I'll probably always be doing something. I don't see myself like ever retiring or anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, you talk about how curious of a person you are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that curiosity can't be satisfied by watching the news all day on the couch.
That's right. Or playing golf, or I don't have a lot of hobbies. Somebody asked me the other day, like, what do I enjoy doing when I'm not working? And it's on the weekends. I'm like just Saturday. We're planning for some new restaurant projects that we're working on. So I love what I do.
And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Where do you see your restaurant portfolio going?
I think we'll continue to expand. We have some active opportunities now here locally. I think there's a strong chance that we will figure out something to do multi-unit that we could scale.
Is that what you're kind of building towards now? Coming up with a concept that you could roll out like across the country or whatnot?
Yeah, I think we're probably we're testing, seeing what might work. Yeah, and this is a great area to do it. There's a reason why a lot of the chains have started here. So.
And a lot of the right people too. I mean, I'm sure that if you did come up with a concept that you felt really strongly about, you could get to the right tables.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah. Are you, when you're deciding where your company's going, and I'm sure you've been asked this in your Vistage group, are you doing it because you have some goal in mind, or are you doing it because it just seems like the natural next step?
I set goals probably short term. Like I don't do like if you read like Good to Great, you have like a BHAG, or if you're in EOS has like these large
BHAG is
goals,
big hairy ass goal.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't normally do that. I think a little more short term. I like to do more of a sprint. And so,
or blocking and tackling. Like,
that's
as long as we're blocking and tackling, like we have a good chance.
Yeah. So I don't think, I guess I just don't think that far into the future, because I like to be a little more agile and be able to pivot.
Me too. You know what? I like having the ability to be agile, because I think being fast is a competitive advantage.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Chon, thanks for coming in, man. It's been great to get to know you.
Thanks for having me. It's been great. Appreciate it.
Well, cool. So where can people follow you and your thought leadership?
I'm at Chon Nguyen on Instagram. I think
Spell that.
I'm private, but ChonNguyen. Same on Twitter.
That's great. Well, we'll follow you there, and you guys can catch all the Law of Relevancy episodes anywhere where podcasts are found, across all of our social media, Bake More Pie's social media. See you next time. Thanks for joining us.